Story 1. A betrayal close to home. I never imagined that my own parents would steal from me. But when I discovered that the $200,000 trust fund my grandparents had left for my future had vanished, used to support my sister instead, I was blindsided. And when I confronted them, they didn't show remorse. Instead, they got furious and kicked me out of the house. To understand how it all unraveled, you need to know about my sister, Emma. She's 4 years older than me and has Down syndrome. Growing up, I knew she was different. Her emotions were intense. If something didn't go her way, even in the smallest way, she would scream, cry, or have a complete meltdown. It wasn't just a child throwing a tantrum, it was like the world had shattered for her. Emma never had close friends. She struggled with social cues and often came across as blunt or even rude, though she never meant any harm. Other kids didn't understand her, and over time they avoided her. My parents, wanting to ensure she wasn't alone, made it my responsibility to include her in everything I did. If I had plans with friends, they insisted Emma tag along. At first, I didn't mind. I wanted Emma to feel included. But bringing her along made things difficult. She didn't understand boundaries, sometimes taking things from other kids or lashing out when she didn't get her way. My friends stopped wanting to hang out if Emma was around, and eventually I found myself alone more often than not. Still, my parents never let me distance myself from her. If I wanted to go out alone, they'd guilt-trip me. They never taught Emma how to adapt, to compromise, or to develop social skills. Instead, they expected me to be her constant companion, her bridge to a world she struggled to understand. While I loved her, it felt like my own life, my identity, was slipping away. And then there was the spending. Emma had an obsession with the color pink. Anything pink, clothes, toys, accessories, she had to have it. If she saw something pink in a store, she'd grab it, refusing to let go. If my parents tried to take it away, she'd have a complete breakdown, screaming and crying until she got what she wanted. To keep her calm, they bought whatever she asked for. Every single time. At first, it was small things. A pink stuffed animal, a pink bracelet. But as she got older, her demands grew. Custom-made pink items, expensive toys, designer clothes. My parents indulged it all, telling themselves it was necessary for her happiness. And I never thought to question it, until I found out where the money was coming from. My grandparents had set up trust funds for both me and Emma when we were born, equal amounts meant to secure our futures. Emma's was meant to cover her therapies and medical needs. Mine was for college, a down payment on a home, my future. I had always relied on the fact that when I turned 18, that money would be there, giving me the stability I had never felt growing up. But my parents had access to both funds. And while Emma's trust was drained over the years to cover her medical expenses, when that money ran out, they didn't stop spending. Instead, they turned to mine. I found out on my 18th birthday. My grandparents threw me a party just as they had for Emma years before. It was a perfect evening, until they made an announcement telling everyone they were so proud of me and that my trust fund was now mine to use. The room erupted in cheers, but I noticed something strange. My parents weren't clapping. They weren't smiling. They stood stiffly, exchanging nervous glances. I should have known something was wrong then. That night, when we got home, the truth came out. My father sat me down, his face tight with guilt, and admitted they had spent nearly all of my trust fund. Not just for Emma's therapies, but on the endless stream of pink things she demanded, on keeping her happy at any cost. 90% of my future, gone. I felt like the floor had been ripped from beneath me. My education, my plans, my independence, all stolen without a second thought. And their excuse? That Emma needed it more. That she would never have the advantages I did, so I should be understanding. I was furious. I asked them why they never told me, why they never stopped spending when they realized what they were doing to me. My father's response? You're not being fair. We did what we had to do. I argued that they should have made better choices, that they could have helped Emma without sacrificing my future. But they didn't see it that way. They had convinced themselves that I was selfish for wanting what was rightfully mine. The fight escalated. Voices were raised. And in the end, they made it clear. If I couldn't accept their decision, I wasn't welcome in their home. So I left. With nothing but the clothes on my back and the painful realization that, in their eyes, I had never mattered as much as Emma did. Tears ran down my cheeks as I assured them that I wasn't doubting Corey's needs or their decision to prioritize her care. I loved her too. But this was about the lack of honesty, the way they had gone behind my back and exploited what was meant to be my future, without believing I even deserved to know. I informed them that this trust money had been my only source of security, the one thing I could rely on to start my life on my own, and now it was almost completely gone. Instead of addressing how upset and betrayed I felt, They began gaslighting me, turning the subject around on me. They expressed disappointment that I couldn't be more understanding, that as Corey's sister, I should appreciate that sometimes sacrifices were necessary. "We're all in this together," they said. I was astounded. They wanted me to simply accept it all without question, to realize that Corey's needs had to come first, no matter the cost. But why was it always Corey? Why was I never allowed to come first? Did they not want me to do anything with my life? That's when my parents revealed their ultimate plan for me, one that revolved solely around taking over the responsibility of caring for Corey. They explained that they had never cared about my education because to them it wasn't important. Their expectation was that I would step up, take over Corey's financial and emotional needs, and dedicate my life to looking after her. My mother looked at me with a mix of pleading and resignation. "You know, we're getting older. It's exhausting looking after Corey. We won't be able to do this forever, so we need you to step in." She went on to say that they didn't mind if I went to a local college rather than the school of my choice. She only hoped I would get a steady job as soon as I graduated, so I could bring Corey to live with me. Then, she said with relief in her voice, we could finally rest. My father added that I should start contributing financially while still in college by working a part-time job and sending money home to Corey. "It will help her have some independence in her life," he explained. "Let her buy whatever she wants and maintain the lifestyle we've provided for her." I sat there stunned. This was not the future I envisioned for myself. My parents expected me to abandon my own aspirations and seamlessly transition into their role as Corey's caregiver, without ever asking what I wanted for my own life. Finally, I erupted. My voice quivered with years of accumulated rage and hurt. "Have you ever thought about what I want? Or am I just here to live for Corey? You never even thought to ask me, did you? All these years I've been expected to just give, and now you're pushing me to be Corey's caretaker so you can rest? How is any of this fair?" My voice trembled as the rage spilled out. "You're making decisions for me without even considering what it means for my life. I can't just drop everything for Corey and pretend like my dreams don't matter." Years of feeling forgotten, of being told I needed to prioritize Corey, of watching them pander to her every whim while I was expected to quietly support from the sidelines, it all came pouring out. But my parents refused to acknowledge any of it. Instead, they tried to persuade me that I was being selfish and inconsiderate. They wanted me to conform, to embrace a life I had never planned for, simply because it was what they believed was best for Corey. Since that day, I've been ignoring my parents completely. I don't feel sadness or regret, just contempt. Update 1 *. Wow. This post has gone viral in just a few hours. Thank you all for your advice. Right now, I'm on my way to tell my grandparents everything. Since the trust fund was created with their money, I believe it's critical that I have their support while I confront this matter. After I explain everything to them, I plan to let them decide the next steps. I trust their judgment. They have always had my best interests at heart. For too long, I kept silent, hoping my parents would come around. But it's clear now that they never will. Update 2 *. It has been 2 weeks since my last update. I told my grandparents everything, and they were as astonished as I was to learn that my parents had drained my trust fund without my authorization. That same week, my grandparents confronted my parents. They were furious. My grandfather, in particular, was livid. He roared at them, his voice filled with fury and disbelief. He told them in no uncertain terms that they were responsible for repaying every last cent, regardless of the circumstances. For a moment, I hoped my parents would finally take responsibility. But instead, my mother pleaded with them, explaining how difficult it was to care for Corey, how her needs were numerous and constant. She tried to justify stealing my trust fund by saying it had helped them care for Corey. And then, in a twisted turn of events, my parents turned against me. They were furious that I had told my grandparents everything. My father, his voice laced with anger, told me I should consider myself lucky, because I was born normal. He accused me of being ungrateful, of despising Corey. It was as if my entire existence, my challenges, my future, none of it mattered. Everything revolved around Corey. But I stood my ground. I looked my parents in the eye and with a steady voice, told them that if they didn't return my money, I would sue them. For the first time, I saw fear in their faces. My grandfather, standing beside me, made it clear, if they didn't agree to return the money, he would get the best lawyer in town and take legal action. Realizing they had no choice, my parents finally agreed to a repayment plan. Update 3 *. A month has passed since my last update. After much pressure and legal threats from my grandfather, my parents finally signed an agreement drawn up by his lawyer. Since they couldn't repay the full amount in one lump sum, They will make installments over the next 18 months. However, there's a strict clause. If they fail to make a payment, my grandparents and I have the right to take immediate legal action. My parents are still angry. They blame me for everything and they refuse to understand why I took such drastic steps. But my grandmother reassures me every day that I did what I had to do. You did this to protect yourself and your future, she tells me. Don't look back, only forward. I still see Corey from time to time. She misses me and I miss her. She doesn't fully understand what happened, but she knows something changed. She knows I'm not around like I used to be. It hurts not being able to help her see the full picture. But one thing is clear, while I love Corey and will always be there for her, I will never let my parents dictate my life again. For the first time, I am truly free. This story teaches us a powerful lesson. Standing up for your rights is never wrong, even if it means going against your own family. Love and relationships should never require you to sacrifice your dreams and future. Every individual has the right to make their own life choices, and if someone tries to take that away from you, staying silent is not an option. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to make a tough decision to protect your rights? Do you resonate with this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and let us know what you think.